Welcome to Fatkatproductions of News with a View, January 26, 2025, episode 19. Going to do things a little differently today. I'm going to do a rundown list so you will know what the topics are going to be for the day. And I'm holding out one surprise topic. First thing we'll be going over is deportations, big in the news. It starts. COVID in the CIA report. Ukraine, North Korea, Russia. Some things going on over there that seems to have fallen off the press for a while. And Trump versus the Federal Reserve. And this has been an ongoing issue since his last election. All right, so that's the rundown for January 26th. Let's start. Brazil. Government expressed outrage on Saturday after dozens of immigrants deported. They say immigrants. I say criminals. Deported from the United States, arrived by plane in handcuffs, calling it a flagrant disregard for their rights. Well, hey, how about our rights? That's why we're returning them to you. The Foreign Ministry said it would demand an explanation from Washington over the degrading treatment of the passengers on the flight. They weren't passengers, they were prisoners. When I fly Spirit, I'm a passenger. When I'm in handcuffs being taken somewhere on an airplane, which has never happened, I'm a prisoner. But I still expect to get points for my mileage. Of course, this spat has been simmering since Trump has taken office again. And his hardline they're saying anti-immigration. No, he has no problem with immigration. You tell us who you are, you sign some papers, we look at you, we interview you, and then we say yay or nay. So it's not anti-immigration, it's anti-illegal. And his promise cracks down on irregular migration. Birds migrate. Herds migrate. It's not migrate. Migrate is the idea they come and they go and they go back and they come back and forth and not one way. Stop the crap. A 31-year-old computer technician was on that flight after 7 months in a detention center in the United States. Well, Biden had him locked up. Good for Joe Biden. On the plane, they didn't give us water. We were tied hands and feet. They wouldn't let us even go to the bathroom. It was very hot, some people said, and some people fainted. There was a problem with the aircraft, with air conditioning, and the plane did make an unscheduled stop about this situation. And one of the people that were a prisoner said things have already changed with Trump. Immigrants are treated as criminals. Well, you are a criminal. You are a criminal. Understand that. And these are documented people that had criminal records from the Biden administration. Said you had to go. So, yeah. You got flown home. How'd you get here? I'm sure this was a lot better than how you got here. Then A Brazilian government source told the AFP the deportation flight was not directly linked to an immigration orders issued by Trump upon taking office on Monday. Everyone has to remind us on Monday Trump took over. But rather stemmed from a 2017 bilateral agreement. Yeah, you take your people back if they're criminals here. So the flight was originally destined for a southeastern city of Belo Horizonte, but encountered a technical issue, air conditioning, and had to land in Manaus, Brazil. And then more news. And this is a story that I read out of NBC, so this is NBC facts. Not word for word, but the facts are all there. No copyright infringement. Mexico detained a U.S. military. Mexico denied a U.S. military plane access to land in Mexico, at least temporarily. And they said this frustrating the Trump administration's plan to deport immigrants. They're not immigrants, undocumented, to the country, according to two U.S. defense officials and another person. And, they can never say who these people are, and. But two Guatemalan-bound Air Force C-17s carrying about 80 people apiece flew out of the U.S. Thursday night, slotted from Mexico. They were going to Guatemala. The two other flights, and a third flight slotted from Mexico never took off at the same time. It was not immediately clear why Mexico blocked the flight. And of course, they're citing tensions between Mexico and the United States since Trump was elected and won the election in November. We keep hearing that. We know Trump is the president. He won the election. He was inaugurated on the 20th. We know that. The flight, according to White House officials, this was an administrative issue and was quickly rectified. So, according to them, they took off. Who knows? And, when you hear the word immigration, you thinking of people that are coming here and settling in the United States. And that's what immigrants did. And at a certain point in our history, we said, well, we got to start documenting these people. And there's got to be a process. And a process was set up, and that worked for a while. And then, of course, they improved it, and changed it, and modified it, and then go, oh, no, remember in the 20s, no more. We're stopping it. And the 20s and 30s saw a big drop-off where we said, we had enough. We're not taking any more people from Europe. We're not doing that, and that happened with the Chinese in the late 1890s. And that has happened with just about every major group of people leaving Europe or Asia. And I'm sorry I'm doing this still, but I was thinking of putting up a little slide when I'm doing it, but it'd be confusing. So it's no different than if I was using a handkerchief. In another border report, U.S. authorities on Friday removed dozens of migrants. And they're not migrants, undocumented criminals. So these are the people that are already on lists, already determined, already vetted by the Biden administration as gotta go. left the border crossing in Santa Teresa, New Mexico. And that's right across from Juarez, Mexico. If you've ever been to Juarez, it's a fun little town. Not like Tijuana, which was Sodom and Gomorrah, but Juarez was a big trading area right across the border. And my family and I have been there quite a few times. So, 2 white charter buses left the San Juanino Customs parking lot west of Juarez as agents of Mexico's National Migration Institute in white pickups and flashing lights escorted the buses southbound. So they said the buses can hold 50 passengers, and both buses were full. Mexican officials said the passengers were Venezuelan nationals removed from the United States. The bus's destination was somewhere near Mexico City. Border Report reached out, and that's a Border Report. It's a news gathering, on border issues. Interesting, and they're pretty factual. And like I said, there's nothing that is not factual in their statements. It's all vetted. So I looked it up, and they're absolutely correct in what they're saying. It's how the words are used to change the tone. So it's an artist painting a picture. So at 5 p.m., they reached out to the officials at 5 p.m. Yeah, try calling an official at 5 p.m. What do you think you got? Your call's important to us. This would be the first large group of non-Mexican citizens deported from the United States by land since President Donald Trump took office. Well, that would kind of make sense. He's only been in there for 6 days. Don't worry. There'll be a lot more coming. So, and like I said earlier in the day, and they left the planes that were going to Guatemala left from Biggs Field at Fort Bliss, Texas, headed for Guatemala. And that came from the office of U.S. Representative Tony Gonzalez, a Republican from Texas. And deportations of Mexican nationals, groups of 30 to 40, have taken place daily since Monday. And the Mexican government on Friday continued to build massive tent complexes in North Juarez. So they say they have videos of contractors putting up 5 large canvas tents around large metal poles. That's why big tents go up. Dozens of portable toilets are already in place. So, you got 1,000 people, you're going to need more than a dozen of those toilets. But in one of 9 so-called migrant reception centers Mexico is erecting in Baja California, Sonora, and all over Mexico to assist migrants deported from the United States. Well, if you want to call them migrants, they're going back to where they came from. They're migrating. What's your problem? You let them migrate through you. Let them migrate through you back. Right? No problem with that. Those big lines we used to see marching, and no one stopped them. No one from Mexico stopped these people. I'm sure the Mexican people in those areas love the idea of all these strangers coming into their towns, knocking on doors for food, using their streets as toilets. I'm sure they were thrilled with it. So Mexico will serve the migrants in need of food, medical checkups, and a place to rest. Bus tickets and a $98 debit card will be offered to the Mexican citizens. Now, I'm pretty sure we're paying for that in some deal that was made by border czar Harris. So I'm sure this is all billable back to us. And of course, the president of Mexico, President Bardo, said her government would assist foreign nationals expelled from the United States on humanitarian grounds and then seek to repatriate them in their country of origin. Expelled. That's an interesting word. They were not expelled. They were deported. Expel would mean you had a chance of coming back. Yeah, you ain't coming back. These people are on a list. They came here illegally. You might have to wait 10 years, but you're going to wait. So, that's my reporting on deportations. And so what do you think? This is Biden's list that Trump is using. This is not anything else. Interesting little backstory that goes with some of this and what's going on with ICE and stuff. ICE, it wasn't ICE, it was Secret Service agents in Chicago went to a school to follow a lead about a threat of someone that the Secret Service is protecting. They didn't say who. And the school refused to let the Secret Service into the school, past the office, because they were afraid that these were ICE agents, even though they identified themselves as Homeland Security. And that's who Secret Service work under. And showed credentials. They were refused access. When questioned, they said, well, we thought they were ICE agents, not Secret Service agents. Federal agents. You don't need a warrant. They already had probable cause. So their idea was that they told them, you need a warrant to come in here. No, they didn't. There was a threat. It was a known threat. And they were following up leads. You're at a public school. There is no expectation of privacy. So no one's Fourth Amendment rights were actually going to be violated under the search and seizure or anything like that. They just wanted to do an interview with someone. Now, they didn't say who it was. Was it a teacher? Was it a staff member? Was it a custodian? Was it a student? But they didn't say. They just refused them access. What do you think is going to happen? They said, we're following our policy the school has. Well, again, folks, school policy can't dictate what the law is. It's a policy. And would they have done the same if it was the police that showed up? Because federal agents have the same authority, just it goes across state lines and county lines and municipalities. Remember, federal comes down, covers everything. I think people are going to be arrested. and not to be made an example of, but because they're interfering in the due process of how our laws work, and restricting the federal agents. Yeah, that's not a good thing. I think they'll have a sit down with a lot of governors and a lot of mayors real quick and go, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do, and we're not going to do what we can't do. But you could bet your bottom dollar that when we show up at the next school and you refuse to let us in there, we'll arrest everyone there. We'll lock that school down and we'll have 50 agents in here. And then we'll charge you with procedural interference or whatever. A low charge. But you're going to be charged. And will it go out as an example? No. No. But it will go out that we're going to exercise the law, and we expect you to exercise the law too. So that should be interesting. I can't wait to start writing about that. Now, COVID and the CIA. All right. To COVID. Back in the news. The Central Intelligence Agency has assessed that the COVID-19 pandemic is more likely to have emerged from a lab rather than from nature, an agency spokesman said on Saturday. Well, it's interesting. The agency had member for years said, oh, we don't know, I don't know. Well, we don't know. But in the final weeks of the Biden administration, CIA Director William Burns asked the CIA analysts and scientists to make a clear determination because of the historical significance to America. And so, the years before that, I guess it wasn't a thing that we had to worry about. But after Trump won, and in the last weeks of the Biden administration, then all of a sudden, hey, we really need to know. The CIA had said that low confidence in its assessment that a research-related origin of this COVID-19 is more likely, and notes in a statement that both scenarios, that it could have come from lab or could have come from nature. So they're saying, yeah, it came from a lab, but the origin and natural origin remain plausible. Now, the natural origin came from a cave in nature. And see how they use that word, natural origin. Natural origin. Bob, I want you to think about that. Because they didn't say anything about it being enhanced for gain of function. They use the word natural origin, which means they took it from a bat. Then took it to a lab, poked around with it, and, I'm not saying weaponized it. They were trying to do gain of function, to figure out, okay, when this thing goes this way and this thing goes that way, what do we have to combat it? And somehow it got out. And it was just seemed very convenient that within 2 or 3 months they had an antidote, a concoction, untested, but we have it. And you had your Fauci's and your Gates and all these other, yeah. And it just makes you think. And you have to love the CIA. Yes, it's from a lab, but yes, it could still be in nature too. So yeah, in its bat form, but whatever you turned it into, Franken-COVID, and you still called it COVID-19, yeah. You're not fooling anyone. Stop it. Stop it. You'll look even more foolish when the truth comes out. And it was unclear to the extent to which the agency had collected the new intelligence. Last week, they just happened. Hey, look. Oh, man, I wish we had this 8 months ago. Yeah. Was used to formulate the latest assessment. And, of course, China says, the government says, we support, to look for origin. And has accused Washington of politicizing the matter, especially because of the efforts by the U.S. intelligence agency to investigate. Well, I would too if China said we want to send our secret agents or spy agency in here and look around your lab. I can understand China going, no. And, of course, Beijing said a laboratory leak that caused the spread of COVID-19 has no credibility. Well, no credibility only because you're stopping people from investigating it to find the cause. So until that time, you're absolutely correct. It has no credibility. And then, of course, in an interview with Breitbart, following his confirmation, new CIA director, we like that sound, John Ratcliffe, great guy, said one of his first priorities is getting his agency to make a public assessment on the pandemic's origin. That's a day one thing for me, he said. I've been on record, as you know, in saying I think our intelligence, our science, and our common sense all really dictate that the origin of COVID was a leak at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Now, again, intelligence, our science, and our common sense. Remember, I keep pointing out common sense. What is common sense to me might not be common sense to you. So, I do say that if I said, this is a microphone, and you're looking at it and you go, no, I think it's a speaker. And I'd look at you and I'd go, no, it's a microphone because one, it's shaped like a microphone. I can tap it and it goes through and it then through an amplifier and a mixer and everything else, and it can hear me talk. A speaker wouldn't work like that. I don't hear anything coming out of this. So you'd have common sense to say it's a microphone because I see it. I think before you could use common sense, you have to have the facts out there. And then you could use your common sense to draw a conclusion and an opinion. And that's how things should work. Just because someone tells you it, you really, on many of these things, you should do your research. People don't have the time to do their research. I'm working. The only time I get to see the news is on the 5:15, and I read through, you know, whatever rag paper I paid $1.50 for, just so I don't have to hear the guy snoring next to me. I can just read. I block everything out, and then that's what I take. Well, I read it. That's what it said in the paper, and they never follow up on it. So a lot of this stuff. Be careful what you're being fed. Know what's in your food. You demand to see what's in your food. Demand to know what's going up here, folks. Because that's the only way you could really make a good decision. And you could have, you know, hey, you know, you could have all the facts and still go, I'm going to go the other way. All right. Because you can. And you can have an opinion. And your opinion is your opinion. I respect your right to be wrong. How about that? Bob from New York, who called me up today complaining about what Trump was doing. 12 inspector generals, and I had to stop him and go, no, Bob, you're wrong. And no, I'm not wrong. And I go, it was 17. All right, so it's 17. And then I went through the whole thing. I said, you didn't watch my show yesterday. You didn't watch my show where I complained about Trump not giving a 30-day notice to Congress, which is he required to do. He didn't do that. Now, whether he did or didn't, I don't, you know, we don't know. I'm just, again, looking, and I didn't see anything where Congress was given a notification, but it just might not have been out there yet. Or, you know, Trump can just turn around and go, yeah, I gave notification right here. They're fired. There's your notification. I think it has to be a little bit more clearer than that. But whatever. So I calmed him down with that, and I pointed him towards episode number 18. And we discussed that. And then some other things. I said, I'm not locked in step with anyone. If it hinky, if it doesn't smell or taste right, I'm going to say that. And just because a Republican tells me something, you don't think I'm going to go and look and see what the Democrat had to say about that? Or, you know, the Republican, it's all in their story, and there's no mention of any Democrat saying something. And then you go, you know, you have to now look, and you find that, hey, you know, this guy said plenty. No one listened to him, but this is what he said. And what he said was factual. He said it. These are the words that he said. So that becomes factual. The facts might not be factual, but what he said is factual. So if you get that train of thought. And I like trying to get the facts and then coming to a conclusion. And again, that's why I'm always right. All right, we're slipping down to Ukraine news, and this is a hodgepodge of information taken from Business Insider. And this has to do with Ukraine, North Korea, Russia. And again, I'm not so sure why it has to do with business, but, you know, war makes good business. North Korea forces are suffering very high losses fighting for their Russian agent in the Ukraine. So, North Korea is in there because Russia has asked them in their treaty of help and assistance. And Business Insider went on to say that about 4,000 North Korean soldiers have been killed or wounded, and this is coming from Western intelligence sources. And I'm probably going to say that's probably from British sources and some U.S., South Korean, you know. The high toll is hurting North Korea's combat operations. And they're saying Pyongyang is, the capital. So North Korean forces fighting for Russia are suffering high losses, and it's hurting their combat operations, a new Western intelligence assessment says. And they said about 11,000 North Korean troops deployed to the Russians' Kursk region, where Ukrainian forces had launched a daring invasion several months earlier. And within weeks of their arrival, said North Korea, forces were already experiencing significant losses. And of course, North Korea has not fought a real war in, since the 50s. So their combat readiness and skills might be very good, but if they're using 1950s or 1960 tactics against today's weaponries, yeah, it's going to be brutal. So, and a British Defense Ministry said on Friday as of mid-January, about 1,000 North Korean soldiers have been killed and 3,000 more wounded in combat against the Ukraine. That's more than a third of the number of troops deployed. Those are very, very high losses. I think our losses during World War II was like 1 out of 1,000, or 27 out of 1,000 could be expected to be killed. And that's because for every frontline troop you had 60 people in that chain to support that one soldier. So real interesting when you look at the logistics, and it starts at a point from that one person and then goes down and then kind of takes shape on how many people it takes to supply one soldier in combat. And that's why I said war is good business. So, despite the heavy losses fighting for Russia, North Korean troops have only achieved tactical gains in the Kursk region. There's a lot of reasons why they're having a problem there. One is language barrier. And I think they have a problem working with a Russian command and control structure. And again, I said they have not had a lot of military deployment. And Russia has always, and same with China, and the same with North Korea, they would just throw bodies out there. We'll kill them with numbers, because we have an unlimited supply of people. Well, now Russia doesn't have that unlimited supply of people. They don't have all their little satellite countries that they can grab people from. And China, was huge. They could just keep throwing numbers, and then they gave them to North Korea, and they had these charging attacks, and that's when we developed miniguns and weapons where the bullets tumbled and hit you and just didn't pierce you and come out your other side, and you could run another 100 yards before you fall down. These tore you to pieces. They were people stoppers. So the U.S. is saying that the North Koreans are being used as fodder for the cannons, human waves. So, and Major General Pat Ryder, the former Pentagon spokesman, said the North Korean troops are well disciplined, competent, and capable soldiers. Ukrainian soldiers have also described them as highly skilled in combat, amid claims that they were treated as expendable. Uh, and what we're seeing on the battlefield, they are a threat. It isn't like, hey, this is a turkey shooting, uh, but they are a very capable army. They work together good as a unit. But with any of these type of authoritarian armies, you cut the head off and they don't know what to do. There's no one there to take charge, and then things fall apart. Where, the American strategy was, do something, do anything. Even if it's wrong, do something. Just don't sit there. And he said that the Ukrainians are doing a good job of holding them back, but they can only hold them back so long. They can be whittled down by numbers too. The Ukrainians lost, a lot, about 100,000 soldiers. So, and the big thing, well, we captured 2 wounded North Korean, and one of them thought he's being sent to Russia for training purpose, not to actually fight in a war. Hey, you speak to a lot of soldiers from World War II, and they didn't know where they were going. They knew there was a war going on, but they had no idea where they were going. And yes, where are we going? You'll be told when you get there. That was it. So, the 2 countries, North Korea and Russia, signed a military pledge assistance if one is attacked. So the other will help. And North Korea is sending them military equipment, which our initial reports said a lot of their equipment was falling apart and not working. And even the Chinese stuff that they sent, tires fall off trucks. I just think of anything that I buy at Harbor Freight and use it 5 times. So, do you think this information is correct? Think it's propaganda? How long can North Korea sustain these losses? How long are they willing to sustain these losses? I think their leader doesn't really care. He's fulfilling an obligation. And, as long as it doesn't start affecting his grip on the people, he's not going to care. But how long can the Ukrainians hold their front lines? Is Russia waiting for the U.S. to reduce our aid, then make a huge move on the Ukraine? Certainly a possibility. Trump turns around and he goes, well, yeah, listen, you don't want to do the deal I'm making over here. Well, hey, fellas, good luck to you. I know when to cut my losses. But I'm putting my money on the Trump administration making a long-planned deal where Russia keeps some of the territory captured. Russia's going to have to save face here, not the Ukraine, who you would think that, they were the ones that were invaded. Yes, you can compare it to giving Germany the Sudetenland. If you must make a comparison, you can do that. Because you would be factual. That's all factual. So, but there'll be a catch. A big catch. That Russians will be limited in what they could hold on to, and it's really that Kursk region that they want. They need access to a warm water port, unfettered. And how the Ukraine retook that, and they didn't. It was really when the Russia fell apart, and the Russian Federation started to unload stuff, and yeah, they really should not have given Kursk away. That region, they needed that region, but they did, and you know that was sovereign land in the Ukraine. So what's going to happen is they're going to be able to keep a certain amount of land, and Trump will say the United States policy will be to block the Ukraine into NATO. But Russia, for that agreement, there must be an agreement where Russia agrees to halt any aggression on any of its neighbors, not just the Ukraine. So any of their neighboring countries, Poland, Belarus, all these nations, hands off. Or we will immediately put them into NATO, and then we're going to get into a fighting war. And neither one of us wanted to do this. We know why Russia did what they did. And if you don't, read up and you can understand why. And come to the same conclusion that I have come to using facts. And the issue was NATO. There was a lot of saber rattling by people in the government, our government, the military, Biden, saying that, maybe we'll let the Ukraine in to NATO. I mean, we let Poland in, we let some of these other countries in. Why not the Ukraine? And NATO, was behind that. NATO said, got to vote. Everyone has to agree. If just one person disagrees, you don't come in. And Putin said, I'm not going to stand for that. We can't. This is the same thing that happened with you guys with Cuba. You didn't like the idea of us having offensive weapons 90 miles from your shore. And we had a showdown. And, we pulled out and we said, we're not going to do this. And, we came to agreement and you're not going to attack Cuba anymore. That stays in effect for 99 years. So, Russia was very worried about getting into that Ukraine getting into Russia, NATO getting into the Ukraine, and then NATO placing offensive weapons, not defensive weapons, offensive weapons. And offensive weapons would be nuclear weapons. And that's right in their underbelly. Now, the difference between 1963 and 2020 or 2021 is that the technology now, I don't have to have that weapon right at your back door or on the fence, behind my fence, aimed at your house to get that weapon there. Whether my weapon or device hits you in 32 seconds or 58 seconds, you're getting hit. And there's no stopping it once it's launched, it's going. So the idea that we need these weapons as first strike and a retaliatory strike or anything like that, you can't make that. You can't make that call. And Biden wanted to show the world he was strong and he would stand by his words against Russia and Putin. And he thought Putin would blink. And Putin was not going to say, I listen, I told you, take NATO away and we can have a discussion. Take that away. Assure me that that's not going to happen, and we can ease this confrontation right now. And, he said, oh, no. You attacked them. That's it. Gloves are off. And here we are today. And it all could have been stopped. It could have been prevented. I truly believe that if Trump had won the election in 2020, this would not have happened. This would not have happened. He would have gone, my good friend Vladimir, and he's really a great guy. I mean, you just have to sit down and, talk to him. He's reasonable. He can see things. Like, dear leader Kim, I mean, I'd love to build condos there. What a sight, what a beautiful sight. I could see putting up 50,000 condos there. Great place to go. Beautiful. People are wonderful. That's how Trump thinks. Biden had 50 years of the Cold War. And then a Russia that was not so strong anymore. I mean, still capable. Do not underestimate Russia. There could still be a very big threat. But Biden had to show the world. As most presidents who sit in that office, have to show, hey, I'm going to flex my muscles a little bit here. And, I'm not interested in the business side of the deal here. I'm interested in, the political freedom of those people or the rights of those people and stuff. So it was on a different level. But Biden definitely screwed the pooch. And now Trump's going to go in there, and I'm sure there's going to be some type of deal. It's not going to be as good a deal as it could have been, but there will be a deal because we can't continue to supply the Ukraine, and there's no way we're going to let Ukraine, in the middle of a war, become a NATO ally, and then now open the floodgates, because that just brings on every fear that Russia had, which is a self-fulfilling prophecy on Russia. They didn't want the Ukraine in NATO, but look what they got. Finland and Sweden joined. That was even a bigger fear, because those countries are capable and are sitting right in their underbelly and have stayed free for a reason. They weren't taken over. So they knew, and leaving these people alone. That's a bee with a sting. And that became a self-fulfilling prophecy of NATO taking and surrounding us now. So part of the blame's on Putin. And he was told, by his military, we can go, we'll be in Kiev, I don't know, what is it, Tuesday? I don't know, Saturday we should be there. We'll get Zelensky's out of office, throw a puppet government in there, and boom, boom, we'll make good. We'll go out, we'll have this open territory, and it will be business like usual. And Ukraine was and is one of the most corrupt countries in that region. Always was, always will be. So, we blame Biden. And the facts will blame Biden. Now, the last topic. President Trump continued his campaign, and it is a campaign, to browbeat the Federal Reserve into lowering interest rates if oil prices drop, citing his agenda with Saudi Arabia and OPEC in lowering fuel prices. So he wants it that if fuel prices go down, interest rates should go down too. Now, this has been a battle cry of Trump from his first administration of going after the Federal Reserve. This is where I disagree with Donald Trump. Trump, in the short term, would probably, things would work this way. But you don't know what can happen. And the Federal Reserve is always looking out, not 3 months, 6 months, a year. They're going years down the road with their projections. And that's all they do. And Donald Trump goes, I know more than the Federal Reserve. I know about interest rates more than, All right. I'm going to say I doubt that. And I question that. And he might be correct in saying, if I do this, we'll get a bounce over here. Yeah, okay, that can happen. But we kept our hands off the Federal Reserve for a reason. And we made that non-political so it could not get screwed up. And he's not ordering them, he's kind of browbeating them. Many foreign monetary experts fear that Trump undermining the Federal Reserve could actually trigger an inflation fears and actually cause rates to rise in the long term. So, do you think President Trump knows more than the Federal Reserve? I think in the short term, Trump tying interest rates to oil prices would have an effect. But 2+ years down the road, and who knows? Do we want to find ourselves there? We have an administration and we have our policies. And even though I don't agree all the time with the Federal Reserve, they're the watchdog. And you gotta listen when that dog barks. Why is it barking? For a reason. There's no barking, okay, hey, we're safe over here. But when that watchdog starts barking, why is it barking? What's going on? Maybe I need to take a look at this. And that's why it can't be political. And I'm not so sure oil is still the currency, or will continue to be the currency. It might be. It might be for the next 10 years. And Saudi Arabia, of course, just signed a $600 billion deal with us. So Trump wants oil. He wants us to have it. He wants us to use it, us to export it. Let Saudi Arabia supply China and India. Let the United States supply Europe with Canada and you know, England that has oil, in the North Sea. And Trump can sit down with all these people and they go, hey, there's enough money for all of us. But if you want to be pigs, I'm the biggest pig here. And I'll become even bigger. And I'll eat your food. And you know what happens to a pig when they don't eat, right? So, that's my thinking. It's all right for a president to nudge the Federal Reserve. But you better damn well listen to them. Because if it falls apart, they're going to point the finger right there. And there's no one to take the blame but you, Donald, if you force the Federal Reserve. Now, if in the 4 years, you're right, well, then you get the claim you're right. But do you want to take that chance? Or do you want to get them to understand where you're going from and listen to their concerns? And we have to be cognizant of that. You just can't blindly go, they elected Trump, I have a mandate, he can do this and stuff. Very, very, very dangerous. I'm not a big fan of that. All right, now I said I was going to have a surprise. And this is just on a personal note. Karen Jean-Pierre, former White House press secretary, shared some heartaching news this week in a Vanity Fair interview. And saying in the last 18 months, she was going to New York every weekend secretly, almost like in disguise, to help her mother, who is fighting cancer. And she kept that a secret from everyone she worked with, except, I'm sure, the highest levels. And if anyone in the news media knew about it, they respected her secret and didn't do it. And her reason for keeping it secret, other than private, and she's a private citizen. She doesn't have to share everything that goes on with her, and neither should anyone else. Was that people would look at it as an excuse if she made a mistake, or an excuse, for her attitude or whatever, that would be an excuse. Oh, she's going to use that as an excuse. And she might have been right. Now, she said society doesn't allow women of color to be vulnerable at work. I don't know about that. That might be a stretch. Because I've seen plenty of people being vulnerable at work. And color had nothing to do with it. One of her few confidants was in understanding Joe Biden, despite a plea from her mother not to tell anyone, including the president. Well, press secretary and people that close to the inner circle can't have secrets. And you saw what happened when the defense secretary went in the hospital and no one knew what the hell was going on, You can't have secrets. You have to tell them, and with a pledge that, this doesn't leave this room. And if I find out that it left this room because of someone in here, I quit. So, you tell me right now, we'll make it a nice resignation. I'll give you 3 months or whatever. But, it stays here. So, she did that, and she'd take, her mom had, she said what her mom had, stage 2 colon cancer. After she returned from a trip to Poland with the president in 2023, her mom was diagnosed. And she helped her mom. And she said, every day I kept my personal life hidden. And I worked 16 hours days and traveled across continents with, the president and staff. And I've been silently working a second full-time job, which is navigating my mother's health care. And she said she would covertly go to New York, where her mom lives, in a mask to conceal her identity, to see her mom. And she would still make it back to New York Monday morning, arriving at the White House at 7:30. But she said I was losing my grip. I told my mom I wanted to move to New York so I could help her full time. And she said, you're not quitting your job. So you could see the type of family structure that she had that led her to where she is today. And that was a mother who raised her child, and then a child who then cared for her mother. That was yesterday's speak about the family nuclear bubble. I didn't know about this until this morning when I was reading it. But this is why the family circle is so important. Because it gives you not only a sense of identity, but a sense of worth. And an idea of, hey, this is how you do it. When my mom was sick, my brothers and I, we flew back and forth from New York and Ohio, and my poor sister was there all the time with my mom. As much as any of us could. Mom was in Florida, we were in New York, Ohio, and we had relatives close by. But, when the time came and we had to make a decision, and, my dad had, before he had passed away, said, don't put your mother in a home. And she was so sick that we said none of us could take care of her. There was just no way. We still had children at home, some of us, and you just couldn't do it. We were taking care of grandkids, or they were taking care of their children. Both parents worked already. And it was left to my brother Donald and I to decide we're going to, put Mom into a care facility. But she had been so far gone at that point that it was hospice, and she lasted about 3 weeks, and the Lord took her. And she was 80, and she had been diagnosed and didn't tell any of us, and she was trying to make one last trip up to New York to see everyone and couldn't do it. So, that is what a family does. And you do your best. You muddle your way through it, and I told Mike, I don't want anyone taking care of me. I don't want you to have to think twice about putting me somewhere when the time comes. Hopefully I'll go the way my dad did, and he had no idea what was going on, so you could have put him somewhere, and I don't know where he thought he was. But I don't want to be a burden. And I realize at some point, you'll have to have your kids, you'll still be active enough that they'll be involved. But when it comes to the point that I just can't care for myself anymore. This is probably next week. Yeah. That's a tough decision. We're living longer. 1964 World's Fair did promise some things, and we're getting there. I think I'm in a lot better shape in my 70s than my dad was in his 70s. I could still waddle my butt underneath a car and work, Not good, but I can do it. I break stuff now when I'm when I overdo things, and was laid up for 4 months with that. But I still do it. I still want to do it. I still fix radios and things and rebuild old radios. A little bit more shaky than I was, but yeah, those third hand tools really help out. But this is what happens. You know, science is keeping us around longer. Just the quality of life. This is We're outpacing quality of life. And if you can't have quality of life, I don't know. Do you think that's a good trade? I don't know. I don't want to leave. I want to stay here as long as God lets me stay here. But I do understand we all come with an expiration date. It's just how we expire that matters. So, well, on that happy note, I'm going to say goodbye. This probably is like an hour and 30 minutes already. And I said 45 minutes. That's what I usually tell them at work. Oh, I'll have this done in 45 minutes. 2 hours later. Uh, Everyone be safe. God bless. Say a prayer for hurricane victims and fire victims. If you're going to donate to a registered charity. Don't become a victim, helping a victim. You hear me all the time. Those charities won't come to you. You must go to them. Don't get fooled. And with that, I'm going to say adios. Tomorrow we're going to have a show. And I think starting next Friday, we're going to be doing a live half-hour show during the day. Just a half hour. It's going to be timed half hour, and that's it. And do a rundown, and then later on, maybe that night, go into the meat and potatoes of what we were talking about. But we'll see. I got a lot of things in the fire. All right, Rick, I hope you liked this one. Bob, I hope you watched this. God, you need educating. But that's why God put me here. All right, everyone. I'm going to say goodnight, and I'm going to fade to black, and this will probably go up sometime at about 8:30 tonight. All right, as I fade to black.